it thins out and dilutes that fuel to allow it to still run through those high-pressure systems.
Okay.
So let me tell you kind of the guidelines I do. 70 or above, I don't do anything. I run it straight. 69 to say about 55, I'm blending in about a B80 to B70. And when I say B, that means the percentage of biodiesel in the fuel. So B70 would be 70% diesel and 30% biodiesel. Or I'm sorry, 70% biodiesel and 30% diesel. Apologize.
No problem.
Once I hit about 50 degrees, I move to about a 50-50 blend. If it gets down into the freezing temperatures, I move into about a 20% blend. And if it gets really cold, like sub-zero, I may not even run it because I like my diesel car to start and be able to run.
Okay. All right.
So that's kind of, oh, you bet.
So that's a great guidelines there, sort of the breaking it down by temperature, and also recommend. So would you recommend as well, maybe if somebody has an uninsulated garage or something like that, maybe keeping a jar of it out there as well overnight, and just sort of keeping an eye on that?
Mm-hmm. Especially if you park the truck outside, you want to. I kept a big carboy or a 5-gallon jug or a jar of it in the bed of my truck, and so if I came out in the morning and that stuff started to look gelatinous, I knew that I had not much time to get to the gas station and get some diesel fuel in my tank, or I'd also keep some around. One thing that's important to clarify, too, is you may have heard that there's a lot of cold flow additives on the market for diesel fuel, and they work wonderful. You've got power service, all these different things. That isn't the case with biodiesel. To my knowledge, to this date, based on research done in the universities, there is not an effective cold flow reducer for biodiesel, straight biodiesel, on the market today. There are cold flow reducer or gel point reducers for diesel fuel that you can then add to diesel fuel and then add to the biodiesel, and those will work. But as of today, the only true anti-gel additive for biodiesel is good old diesel fuel and kerosene, where you're just diluting it down.
Okay, great. And those fortunate enough to live in tropical conditions, or those that don't get snow or get dropping down into the sub-zero or freezing temperatures, they can, if it's 70 and above, you say that they can just sort of run B100 if they really wanted to. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. Another thing that's also important to note is if you do live in colder climates and you're planning on making biodiesel, it's important to know the types of oil that you're using to make it. For example, in Utah, where we're nice and cold in the winters, we like to try and get oil that's canola-based. And that's because canola-based biodiesel actually doesn't gel till down almost to freezing. I've had a jar out in my shed, and right at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I start to see some clouding in my canola-based stuff. But in my soy-based biodiesel, stuff's almost as solid as a brick.
Okay.
So there's a wide range there that you want to watch.
All right, well, good to know, good to know. Now, you mentioned some of the different blends, B20, B99, their B5, etc., whatever. So a lot of people, and I've seen some reports, we had talked previously about Diesel Power Magazine doing a pretty good spread and layout on testing out these different blends and seeing how they affect performance, if people have done performance parts. I know that a lot of diesel dragsters and some of the fastest diesels on the planet are running at least some biodiesel. Can you explain to us just performance in general and how biodiesel can actually, why these diesel dragsters may be running those biodiesel blends in them?
You bet, you bet. Let's talk a little bit about biodiesel and what it does to the engine, first of all. Biodiesel is actually better from a burning standpoint than straight diesel fuel. And the reason for that is the flash point is higher, and also the cetane is higher, and it also has a higher lubricity to it, meaning that it's going to be slicker. And so it's actually a little bit better for the engine to burn it, and it's easier for the engine to burn it. What that means from performance standpoint is, let's say you've got a chip or you've got your turbo turned way up. We're always watching our exhaust temps on those so that we don't burn things up. Well, when we burn biodiesel, we actually burn cooler because of this higher gel point. And so dragsters and racers and diesel guys that are doing performance things like a little bit of biodiesel in the blend because it allows them to push the diesels harder without hurting them near as much. It's almost kind of like an insurance policy against hurting that engine while they can still push it down the road. One side benefit, or I don't know if you call it that, is that it doesn't smoke as much. So let's say that you've chipped that truck, and let's say that you've got a nice neighbor who's a cop that likes to watch you go down the road, and anytime you smoke it, he goes after you. Well, you can still turn it up, you can still chip it real heavy, and if you put biodiesel in it, you're not going to smoke as much, and you can still light the tires up down the road. So that's part of the benefit. As far as the blend that they find optimal, most of the drag racers and most of the guys that are running it at about a B20 blend. Biodiesel actually has less energy per BT per gallon than diesel fuel. And so they found that if they mix it in about a 20% biodiesel to 80% diesel blend, they hit that sweet spot. They got the most amount of lubricity and low exhaust temps and all of those things, but they still didn't lose all the power of having diesel fuel in the tank. And so that's where the B20 kind of comes from. So it's kind of a sweet spot if you're running the performance parts where you're going to get the most performance out of having biodiesel and the most bang for your buck and not a lot of loss of power. So,
okay, great. So rest assured, no worries, where a lot of people are like, well, it's not going to work with my chip or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. In short, biodiesel definitely will help your performance mm-hmm. and won't harm it, and that's for sure, right?
Yeah. In most cases, it's actually going to help the performance that you get out. It shouldn't hurt the performance parts at all. The majority of them are tested now with biodiesel. They do really, really well. The dragsters are pushing the diesels as fast as they can with biodiesel in it. There's got to be something to it. So, just a comment, too, about ULSD. You may have some folks out there with older diesel engines that were made before this whole ultra-low sulfur diesel came onto the market. If you've been following some of the news, these diesels have been failing injector pumps left and right, especially the old ones, and it's because this lubrication that was in the fuel is now gone, thanks to ULSD. Biodiesel in a 2% blend with your fuel brings all of that back. And so